Chris Gilbert and Craig Moore learned about the history of Golden Voice later in life, but the Milam children were there when it started. And though many memories are vague, they do have some fond experiences that stand out clearly. Dean Milam was the oldest of the 4 children, and he was there when Golden Voice started. And when Jerry decided to open Milam Audio, Dean also became a part of that business.
Growing up, I was fascinated with Golden Voice as it came into existence. I can remember smoke rising up from a soldering gun as my father was hand building his first recording console in our home.
Renee was just a year younger than Dean, and the memories are few, but she does have some recollection of the first studio known as the Milam Home Studio.
My earliest recollection of my family owning a recording studio was when I was around 8 years old. My father had remodeled and soundproofed the lower level of our home. I remember seeing musicians coming and going a lot. In fact, there's even a photo of my older brother, my sister, and me sitting with some of those young musicians.
For Mickey and Dave Milam, the younger 2 children, the early music years in the home have no specific memories.
When people ask me what it was like growing up with Golden Voice in my life, I can't answer that question. From the time that my brothers and my sister and I were very small, Golden Voice was just a part of our lives. So sharing a memory of Golden Voice would be like sharing my childhood.
I was only 4 years old when Milam Audio started in our house on Monroe Street in Pekin, so my memories are not real clear. I was there when the studio was staked out. I remember Uncle Harry and my father laying out the corners of the building. Later, huge concrete trucks delivered what seemed to be this massive amount of blocks that would later become Golden Voice Studio.
Being the youngest, Dave spent time at the studio, especially in the summertime when he wasn't in school.
I do have many memories about Golden Voice Studio in South Pekin, because on the days when my mother was working, instead of going to a babysitter, I got to go to work with my dad.
For Dave, going to work was the experience of enjoying the music along with being a part of building early electronics and audio mixing consoles.
I remember working for my dad laying out hundreds of cables that would be used in the engineering room. I never got into much trouble because my dad could keep close watch on me from up in the control room.
As the children grew and the studio also became a topic of conversation, the memories are more vivid.
After Golden Voice was built in South Pekin, I remember being there often. One of my favorite things to do was sneak into the huge echo chamber. I never could find that light switch, but I went inside anyway and I sang Crimson and Clover by Tommy James and the Shondells, just to imagine what it would be like to be a famous musician.
I enjoyed the opportunities to see and even handle the instruments that band members played during the sessions. It inspired me to play the drums and the guitars as a youth. I believe Larry Fogelberg gave me personal instructions on the drums when I was starting out.
Styx had already released an album before they recorded at Golden Voice, so to most young people, it would have been more than routine when Styx was recording Man of Miracles. But to Dean, it was far more than routine.
During my years in high school, I was in a vocational program which allowed me to work part-time in the electronics department as an apprentice at Golden Voice in South Pekin. One of my best memories, though, was when Styx was recording there with Gary Loiseau as their engineer. During Styx recording breaks, Gary would use our maintenance shop to do upgrades on equipment that he brought with him from his personal studio in Chicago. And I can remember when he was humming and singing Bend Me, Shape Me, Any Way You Want Me. Not only did I feel privileged that Styx was there recording, but I also had no idea that Gary was the lead singer with American Breed singing that hit song from 1967.
For Mickey and Dave, Head East was a standout. They were a topic of conversation with other high school students, and Mickey and Dave were in on the early promotions of the band.
One of the memories I have is in high school when Terry Jamison was trying to promote the band Head East. He asked me and my brother Dave to wear t-shirts that showed where the band would be playing that night, and so we did, and this is what we wore to high school.
After Golden Voice, the early experience affected the lives of all of the family. Renee and David worked at Milam Audio for a period of time, but only Dean stayed with the pro audio industry and made it a career for 20 years.
Later in life, I became the quality and customer service technician for Milam Audio. I truly believe that watching my father build and maintain his own recording equipment influenced my desire to become a professional audio service manager.
Though Mickey never worked at the studio or Milam Audio, she had great respect for how it affected the family life.
It wasn't until I was much older. The studio was long gone, and then I began to understand the diversity of sound that was being created in that studio in the cornfield. And it has been only later in life that I've been truly able to appreciate what pioneers my parents were in the field of music.
As for Mary Ann, her deepest memory was the night they received the phone call telling the Milams the studio was burning. It was 4:00 a.m. Jerry and Mary Ann awoke David and they drove to South Pekin. As they came close to town, they could see the smoke rising in the distance. For Mary Ann, it was devastating. The thought of all the history of their lives being destroyed was unthinkable. She remembers pleading with an officer to be allowed to go into the front section of the building to retrieve the gold records that were hanging on the wall. Though she wasn't allowed into the building, that unknown person went inside and came out with 4 of the gold records. Even today, she still appreciates his efforts to save some of the memories which are now part of this historical collection. She would also like to thank everyone who was a part of Golden Voice history and everyone who contributed their time, historical materials, and memories to put this documentary together during the last 4 years.
Well, listen while I talk to you. We'll tell you what I'm gonna do. And if you do it right, come on, shake tonight. We'll move your body all around and say to shake, 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 shake. There ain't a million things, but shaking is the greatest thing. And if you want to roll, come on, baby, hold our soul. We'll put your hands on your hips. We'll try and let your backbone slip. And if you do it right, come on, shake tonight. We'll move your body all around and say to shake, 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 shake. Well, listen while I talk to you.